All right, we say we get started then, kick it off.
Yeah.
Well, hello everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us today on key SaaS security trends for MSPs. We really appreciate you being here. I'm Michelle Katz, I'm the marketing manager here at SaaS Alerts, and with me on today's webinar is Pat Sullivan, our VP of Sales, and Chip Buck, our co-founder and CTO. Before we kick things off, I'm going to go quickly through just some of the standard housekeeping items that we have. This webinar will be recorded and we can make that available to you after the webinar. So if you'd like it, I think we'll probably just send it out anyway, but we're happy to email it to you as well if you want to drop your email to me in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat or Q&A. We will get to them at the end of the presentation, though. We're going to wait until we're done, and then we'll have plenty of time to answer those questions for you. And just so you know, we do these webinars every month, and we cover different topics. So if there are any topics that you would like us to present, you can just let us know that as well. You can drop that in the chat, and we'd be happy to do a webinar on that for you. And we're going to go through some of our SASI report. If you would like a copy of that as well, we can send that to you. You can drop your email to me in the chat. I'm the host, and we'll make sure we get that to you as well. So kick things off by taking a look at today's agenda. First, we're going to take a look at some updates to our SaaS Applications Security Insights, or SASI report. That's a report that we put out once a year. It goes over different events that we see in SaaS Alerts. So these are real threats. And we're going to take a look at ones we've seen in the last, 8 months or so. So just give you an update on that. Next, we'll take a look at the evolution of SaaS application threats. And with that, we'll talk about some newer ones like phishing as a service, IP address localization, and automated SaaS ransomware, which is one I hadn't heard about until just recently. So then we will talk about how SaaS Alerts can help, and then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A. With all that being said, I am now going to hand it over to Pat Sullivan.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for joining. If we don't take the whole hour, you can have some time back, but we did want to book it in case things got spicy and got interesting. So I'll start off with some stats, and I'll roll through some of the findings that we found from and what's different from this year's SASI report versus last year. And this is all about showing trends and finding out where attacks are coming from and arming you as the service provider to be better, not only better at security, but to be able to tell the whole story, be up on the latest trends, and be able to translate and inform your customers about where these attacks are coming from and arm them with the latest information. So that way they know, A, that you are on top of things, that you are understanding and realizing these trends, but also keeping them better protected and more informed with doing some of the basics, MFA, strong passwords, conditional access, things like that. So we're going to help you spot where these trends are coming from and show you some of the different areas, and we'll roll through. And again, if you have any questions, we'll answer them at the end. So since of March of 2023, there's been a 300% increase in SaaS attacks. That's not surprising to us, I think, on this side of the fence, because we see so much of it. But for the average regular person, this might seem a little daunting. It seem a bit high. And my big question would be why? Why has there been such an increase? And I think the easiest answer to point to is just that, because it's easy. SaaS applications, to these bad actors and nefarious folks, know that there's a gap in coverage, and they know that SaaS applications now is the lowest hanging fruit. We as service providers and security experts have done a lot of really good things to protect our own internal environment, that infrastructure, those firewalls, those switches, those endpoints. SaaS applications now are here to stay. They're growing in volume. Your end users are using them. And until SaaS Alerts was born, there was no real effective way for service providers to really manage, protect, and then ultimately remediate things that were happening in these SaaS applications that were being signed into, not from the office, from anywhere, any device. So I think that really comes down to the core of there's such an increase because it's so easy to send out that phishing link and have the end user click the link, right? People are getting lazy and they work from home, they work from anywhere. So it's really easy now for those bad actors to take advantage of that. And we're seeing that in droves. One of the most recent reports or attacks, and Chip will get to later on in our presentation, was around this Omega ransomware group. And they successfully pulled off an extortion attack on a company's SharePoint online environment without needing to use compromised endpoint, which we know that that's usually how those attacks are, how they unfold. Instead, these threat actors used a weakly secured admin account to infiltrate the company's environment, elevate permissions, and eventually exfiltrate sensitive data from the victim's SharePoint library. And that data was then used to extort the victim to pay a ransom. And so again, that just goes back to my previous statement. Companies have been trying to protect or mitigate ransomware attacks entirely through endpoint security investments. And this attack clearly shows why endpoint security isn't enough, because many companies are now using data and accessing data that are stored in SaaS applications. So here at SaaS Alerts, part of our value add, we want to make you as the service provider better security and give you the most front-facing pieces of technology and to leverage our automation to help thwart against those bad actors, especially in off hours when you don't have a rapid response. Next slide, please. So our SASI report, we do this once a year, and in the past 8 months from January here through August, there was 1.4 billion logged events that were logged. So that's 1.4 billion different events that happened inside of SaaS Alerts that we actually acknowledged and logged. Now, over the past 8 months, if you break that down, it's about 179 million per month, or just over 5 million per day. And I think it's important to note that with those, 97% of all of those events and everything are in these, what we call these low-level categories. So we're helping you log everything, be able to give you that forensics analysis, and we're retaining these logs for a year. So now as a service provider, you can go back confidently to your customers and effectively show them where the bad behavior started, where the unusual activity started, and make recommendations for security to moving forward to help prevent against that. So I think it's just important to note that we've grown so much. It's up from just under 10 million in 2022 to just 1.4 billion. And we're pulling all this information and anonymizing it in that SASI report and giving it to you in an easy to read consumable report that you can share with your customers. That's just an idea of how much stuff we're actually tracking under the hood. Next slide. All right, we're going to play a little game here. So attempted unauthorized logins. This is attempted, not successfully logged in. So if you had to guess here, and whoever, if you guessed the winning company or if you guessed the country without any hints from me, you'll win a $25 gift card, Amazon, if you guess the country. So which country was ranked #1? They had 20% as far as attempted unauthorized logins. Do we have any guesses from the audience? Chip, you're not allowed to guess for obvious reasons.
Some are coming in here, Pat. USA, China, we've got Russia,
Okay.
India,
All good guesses.
Nigeria. That's an informed individual right there.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Any more before we give it away? All really good guesses. Yep, Eastern Europe.
Not a country, Eastern Europe.
That's a catch-all.
Yeah. I like the way he's thinking though. Okay, so drum roll please, Michelle. Let's reveal #1 was, and it's actually going to show the whole thing. China. So congratulations to whoever guessed China. We'll shout you out there.
That was Alan Jacob.
Yeah. Great job, Alan. So you guessed it, right? China, bad actors. There's plenty of, good things going on there too, but there's plenty of nefarious things happening. And, that's not really surprising when especially if you've read any of the most recent articles about what's happening, right? Followed by Vietnam, India, Brazil, and Korea. So, oh, and just to point out too, to give you a stat from 2022, the top 5 represented 53% in attempts, and now it's just 30%. So what does that really tell us? It means more countries are actually getting in on the action. That's what that tells me. All right, next slide. We'll do this game one more time. Successful unauthorized logins. So these are, yeah, same thing, except this country was actually able to get in 26%, and they were number 1 at 26%. Let's get some guesses again for successful unauthorized logins. So we'll try this again. Give everyone a minute to answer. And Alan, you can, if you guess again and guess right, and you're the first one, guess what? 2 gift cards for Alan. We'll give everyone
China
a
and
second.
Russia are popular in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. 10 more seconds. Get your last guesses in here. All right. And drum roll, Michelle, reveal. India. No correct guesses for India. No gift card
Yeah,
for anyone.
Lawrence.
Yes, we did. We have.
Oh, he did. Okay, I missed that. I'm
Lawrence.
sorry. Perfect. Great. Lawrence, congratulations. So you'll notice here, right? And there's a couple odd ones too. I mean, I don't typically think of, oh, I guess maybe Singapore, but United Kingdom, you know, was a surprise to me. In 2022, it was China, Vietnam, and Brazil, right, as the top leaders. So interesting to see the different volleying for countries that are actually getting into these environments. So very interesting to see there. Now we're going to shift it a little bit and show you the top 3 low severity alerts. So these are the top 3 things that fall in that low category. That's that everything else category that we collect as SaaS alerts to log for you. And not too surprising here. So the first one and the number 1 was just a regular file being opened. That's a routine behavior that happens all the time, probably multiple times a day by multiple users. But again, this is logging for when you need it. It'll show you the file name. You won't be able to access the file, but you can see that somebody has opened a file. Number 2, OAuth access used for foreign application. This is if someone is using their Microsoft or Google credentials to log into a third-party SaaS application. And then the third one, and most, really easy to understand, authentication failure. Someone has gotten the username right, but is missing on the password or vice versa. So they've missed, and that's only happened one time. Otherwise, it would be multiple authentication failure. So these are just the top 3 low-level severity alerts that we're seeing across the board here in 2023. And again, 97% of all of the things that are being tracked are in this low-level category. Next slide. So top 3 medium severity alerts, because we have critical, medium, and low. We're now on to medium. So the top 3 here, you'll see account lock leads the count, followed by file download limit exceeded, and number 3 is file upload limit exceeded. So with SaaS alerts, you can set thresholds to say, I want to know every time someone downloads X amount of files or uploads X amount of files. So in this case, we're seeing that there's a lot of file activity not only being downloaded, but uploaded, and most folks are actually exceeding that limit, whatever limit you set as the service provider. And again, these are less than 1%, down from 1.4 from 2022. And last one here, we're going to show you the top 3 critical alerts that we're seeing in the system. The top 3 criticals, the number 1, and I would argue this is the scariest, most critical alert of all alerts: user outside an approved location. That simply means someone has logged in outside of the parameters that you have set up or that you have said are allowed to log in from. So if you ever do see someone outside the approved location and you've got it set up properly, that being SaaS alerts, you might want to investigate that a little bit further. Coming in second, download by downloading outside approved location, and third is opening files outside approved locations. All of these are something that should be, if set up properly, 911 incidents that you should immediately be contacting your customer because something is happening outside of those okayed parameters. All right, and then last slide before I hand it over to Chip. want to just talk about the applications that are driving the most events. And no surprise here, right? Microsoft and Google Workspace created the most events in 2023. Surprisingly, IT Glue and Ninja One, they were still in the top 5, but there was an overall decrease in the alerts. Chip, I don't know if you could maybe speak to that or why that might be, but I need to do a little more investigation there. But Microsoft, right, by far and away, it's the most used application, SaaS application out there. It's what most of your customers are using. It's the cornerstone of their business. That's the application that they log into all day, every day, multiple times a day. So seeing that is no big surprise. And SaaS Alerts is really here to help you gain access and visibility into those Microsoft tenants or Google Workspace tenants that you don't have eyes in today because your folks are working from home. With that being said, I'll transfer it over to Chip, and he'll talk to you a little bit more about some of the trends that we're seeing here as far as SaaS application threats.
Good stuff, Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay, let's dive in, Michelle. Go right to the meat of the matter. So we're going to look at what we've seen as the most increasing threat vectors and tactics that are in play. This one, first slide, is far and away the biggest increase that we've seen in 2023. Phishing as a service with the end goal of executing a session token harvest attack has come in at the top of the list. This allows attackers who wish to compromise an account to compromise that account, even if MFA is available. So if anyone's not aware of these, it's very, very important to make your customers aware of it, to really double down on your anti-phishing training. The way these attacks are executed is someone gets an email. It's often from a vendor or a customer, a supplier, someone that's known to them who their account has been hacked. And it's asking them to share, evaluate a shared file or look at a spreadsheet. When they go to click on that, they're brought to the Microsoft login page, which they expect. They're accustomed to that behavior. What they don't know is they're handing their credentials and running through the MFA authentication process over to a hacker who is harvesting all of this data on the other side. There's a successful connection made because they pass this back through as a proxy directly to the Microsoft login. The user actually connects, a legitimate session token is taken, and since the hacker has all this data in their website, they grab that session token and they're now able to log in and impersonate that user. The whole process from start to finish, start being the moment the person clicks on that nefarious link that takes them to a bogus login page, takes about 30 seconds. I mean, it's literally as fast as someone can run through the sequence of entering their username, password, confirming their MFA, and the token is created and harvested. We've actually set up some of these packages in our labs. And the reason there's been a massive proliferation here is there are multiple services that you can either subscribe to, and now there are toolkits that are free, that even your basic script kiddie, like we used to think of this kind of thing, harvesting session tokens, as sort of state level actor craft. And now if you've got some basic hacking skills, you know what you want to do, you can run one of these service toolkits and off you go. The kits are so sophisticated that they will set up a virtual machine automatically in the data center provider of your choice. Unfortunately, Azure is often one of those targets. Build a website for you, build the login page, even allow you to enter text for the phishing email, push it through a large language machine model generator and clean it up and make it sound like it's good English. I want to go back in our chat to somebody who said Nigeria when we were looking at the most unsuccessful login attempts. Interestingly, Nigeria has been near the top of where these phishing attacks are occurring from. But they actually don't successfully log in. This is the amazing thing. This is now an ecosystem. It's a business, just like we're all in business. And you have people who are trained or have trained themselves to become expert in doing just their part of the hack. So Nigeria has been the place where a lot of these session token elements are executed, but then that expert who's become great at successfully getting through with their phishing scams turns around and sells that session token almost immediately to another actor from somewhere else in the world. And this is where it gets really dangerous. Those are the guys that want to come in low and slow, live off the land, elevate privileges, observe the email traffic going on back and forth, and then use that to turn around and go back to the folks in Nigeria and say, all right, here's 25 other people that we want you to try and phish because they're vendors, customers, or somehow other related to an account that they successfully attacked. So that's how this continues to proliferate. SaaS Alerts picks this up through behavior analysis. No one, not even Microsoft, can demonstrate the instant that account is compromised. We can only interpret it based upon the kind of activity that occurs after the compromise. And that activity usually looks like a legitimate login from somewhere in the States or in the EU or any of the many places around the globe that we cover, and all of our customers' clients are set up so that there's a known territory from which they're expected to log in. And then we'll see that hop to a second login that's coming from an area that they typically wouldn't log in from, or in the case of MSP partners, customers who are covered by device monitoring and Unify in SaaS Alerts from a new device. They'll quickly move from that to adding mailbox rules or trying to change permissions, or even just setting up straight SMTP forwarding. So we can go on to the next one here, Michelle. Okay, this is a new one this year, IP address localization. So everyone's aware, I'm sure all of you are expert enough to know, hey, you can use a VPN and look like you're coming in from any country, anywhere. Well, that's been sort of the mode of operation for the past 10 years or so. But now what's happening is there are large networks, formerly the botnet networks, actually, that you can now pay as an attacker to rent an IP address that's very, very local from the intended target. So if you got a spear phishing campaign and you're going after a C-level executive of a company and somebody has successfully compromised his account, and you want to make sure that it looks like that you log in from Atlanta or Chicago or Philadelphia, you can now rent an IP address, and you pay for it as a hacker from someone else who's built up this large bot network, and you can masquerade and look like you're coming from the same locale as the person who you're targeting. Next slide, Michelle. Automated ransomware extortion. So we talked about this briefly. Michelle made the comment that she hadn't heard of this one before, and this is pretty new. When I think of ransomware traditionally, and I think probably when we all do, we think of how ransomware first started. Somebody gets a piece of malware in their network. It begins encrypting files. It goes out and finds share drives and encrypts those. And sooner or later, the target entity gets an email that says, hey, we've encrypted all your data, and if you want to have a look at it again, you got to pay us, and we'll give you the encryption key, and off you go. So that's sort of the traditional mode of what ransomware really is. Automated ransomware extortion now is evolving into, instead of bothering to encrypt anything, the attacking community has figured out it's bad enough that we've just downloaded every single piece of intellectual property, financials, human resources data, customer data, and all we have to do is demonstrate that we've done that, and we can extort you. And customers are winding up paying in the same way as they would from the old kind of ransomware, where it was all about encryption. So, people have figured out that just the psychological power of knowing that all of your company data has been exfiltrated is enough to allow for ransomware or ransom attacks to successfully succeed. So, the way to combat this is good configuration management, making sure that accounts are difficult, if not impossible, to compromise, round-the-clock monitoring to look for behaviors that indicate that an account is compromised, and obviously back to phishing training, making sure that people aren't doing anything that connects them to an attacker, even for a brief moment, and allows that attack to flow through. This particular ransomware attack that we've been studying lately includes somebody jumping in, asking for the rights to be a SharePoint manager for whatever reason. Again, this is social engineering. Maybe I'm a manager of a team within a business. I go to IT, send them an email and say, hey, I need to reorganize a bunch of stuff in our SharePoint. Can you guys make me a SharePoint admin temporarily? then immediately going in, locking out all the other SharePoint admins and blocking the whole system down. Next one. Okay. Prevention isn't foolproof. It's the timely detection and response that are critical. And I want to hit this point again. There's no product in the marketplace, including Microsoft itself, that can give you a definitive 100% moment of attacks implementation when it succeeded, the second that account first got hacked. So we have to constantly improve the configuration side, make sure the policies are tight, improve on the use of things like conditional access. Make sure if you don't have conditional access available for your tenants, that you're at least setting up security defaults so Microsoft can do some of this on their own. Make sure you're monitoring for geolocation, even though many attackers, especially the ones once they've gained access to an account, are going to impersonate geolocation. It's still an important point in monitoring where accounts are being accessed from, and constantly monitoring the behavior analysis. Pat talked earlier about the file upload and download exceeding thresholds. That's one of the key triggers for recognizing when an account has been compromised and data exfiltration is going on. It also is a key trigger for identifying when an insider threat is at play. This was one of the main, what's the right word? One of the biggest coups that we had this year in 2023 was the successful identification of a Chinese spy ring operated inside a U.S. manufacturer with Defense Department ties. And that was picked up through constant monitoring of that account behavior and tying together several different elements of how that account was behaving and exfiltrating data out, and then where that data was being accessed from. Last and not least, SaaS Alerts offers automated response. That comes really in two flavors of our response module. The first is what we call full automation, where you can set up indicators of compromise, different sets of events that are analyzed by machine learning for their patterns. And when they're triggered, SaaS Alerts can automatically instantly revoke all existing tokens, block sign-in, and secure that account, giving you, the MSP, time to contact your customer and begin discussing with them what's going on. You can get to a very, very, very high threshold, let's say 90% or higher, that you've got a compromised account based upon the rules that you set up, and let full automation take over. We also have what I call a semi-automated mode, which will send the technical team SMS alerts, explain to them what has occurred, explain to them what the recommended action is, and offer them the ability to either reject or approve that recommended action. Personally, I think this is the best way to use our product, because that also provides all of the logging for how your team reacted to it, not just a full automation. It tells you which techs received the alerts and what their response was and when. Next slide, Michelle. Okay, Patrick, I think we're back over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Chip. So I'll give you guys guys and gals, a quick look at SaaS Alerts and how we fit into the picture and how we can ultimately help you become better with security. So a really good first bullet point: what good is an alarm if no one is watching? And this rings true. I know it does, to our smaller partners that don't have, or their customers cannot afford to pay for, a full-blown SOC as a service, the threat hunters, eyes on glass, rapid response teams overnight, however you are trying to set yourself up for these rapid responses off hours. It can become very time consuming and very costly. So enter in SaaS Alerts. With SaaS Alerts, not only do we provide you SaaS Alerts, we've got 3 different buckets, and one of the buckets is Manage. And Manage is the engine that's really acts as that robotic SOC analyst, right? And it's going to sit behind the scenes, no agents involved, so nothing to install. This is all API based. It sits on the tenant, and it will watch for, was it, Chip, 300 some odd plus events these days, or past 300? Oh, you're muted.
243, sorry. Pat.
243, excellent. So just under 300, and that list, right, is growing. So what we're doing here is looking for the bad or suspicious activity, And then you've got Respond, which is another module. That's that automated remediation. So it'll take action on the alert that it sees. So a great use case, we see a login from China at 2 in the morning, rather than sending that to a SOC analyst, having them put eyes on glass, they're looking at it, and then they go in and perform the task. There's some SLA that goes on there. There's time that's lapsing. So our software, we take more of an automated approach. Because at the end of the day, all these different security tools, we're all here to do the same thing. And that's to better protect you and your customers. It's just the philosophy of how we get there. And we take the philosophy of automation and leveraging automation. And a lot of our smaller, even some of our larger MSP partners didn't really have a good solution for their smaller customers that did not need the full-blown SOC. Or could not pay for that. So Respond helps you actually go in and set up those automated rules to shut those things down in the middle of the night or at any point that you choose. We've got automatic actions for Microsoft 365. So again, we are looking for some of the big ones out there that are really obvious, right? Email forwarding rules, especially if it's an email forwarding rule set up to an external email address. Unapproved login locations, MFA authentication failures, right? We're able to then go in automatically and do one of those next bullets, right? Block the sign in, expire the login, reset the password. So we give you the power to make the final call, to Chip's point, whether you're going to have automation do it, or you maybe get the text before you actually have the automation take that final step. We're best in class, first in class as far as the Respond module, and this goes right into, Michelle, next slide, right into Fortify. Fortify is quickly becoming the golden goose. Forever and a day it was Respond. And we had such a big a positive response to our Respond module. We had partners saying, hey, I've got a really good idea for a template. You guys should leverage this template. You should come up with this template here. So you'll see in the Respond module that those canned templates are growing by the day, and that's thanks to you as the partner community. So same deal with Fortify. We want the partners' input. We want the community's input so we can help build out Fortify to the best of our ability. And Fortify is your Microsoft configuration, security configuration tool. And the MSPs that I talk to typically fall into one of two buckets. I do it manually through Microsoft, and it's time consuming. It's a pain in the butt. It takes a long time, and I really wish I had a better way to do this because we're doing it manually. Or I use a third-party tool that's really expensive, and that's really all it does. All it's doing is the management for me. So SaaS Alerts brings it all together. So not only can we provide you real-time alerting with remediation, those nice reports that you can show your customer the proof of work, but you can now configure all of your customers' Microsoft security tenants or the security settings within Microsoft across all of your customers with one click. So you can stack your customers up, apply those settings, and by the way, we're going to track for drift or regression. So if something happens to that policy, if something regresses, we're going to let you know about it and actually flip that switch back on. So we're tying in that Microsoft Secure Score, which customers know and love and they can understand. We give it to you in a report that you can show the customer. Here's what your, it's actual versus desired state. Here's what your actual today score is. And if we do X, Y, and Z things, we can increase your score by X amount. So they'll see a nice pretty pie chart with a 57%. And then we show them, hey, by turning on these other things, we can actually get you to an 85%. And if you switch licenses or if you upgrade licenses, we can get you to a 90. So we can show you the evolution and show you why it might be important to actually upgrade that license. So Fortify really brings it all home as one central place to get most of your security needs for your SaaS environments. And let's be honest, we've talked a lot about Microsoft and Google, and there's plenty of other SaaS apps, including many of the MSP tools that we cover as well. But we spend so much time talking about Microsoft and Google because those are the biggest threat vectors. And we know that those are the applications that your customers are using the most. I've yet to find an MSP partner that tells me that the #1 application used is not Microsoft or Google. Right? Businesses are using their email all day, every day, this device, that device. So as a technology and as a security company, We have to put our best foot forward and skate to where the puck is going, not to where it is today. So I really feel strongly that that's what sets us apart from everybody else is we're leveraging automation. We do so at a very cheap price. So it's very inexpensive to be a SaaS Alerts partner. And if you want pricing, you can schedule a demo and we can talk about it on a call. We offer a 14-day free trial. So you can go in and actually kick the tires and determine for yourself if SaaS Alerts is right for you. And we'll help you with onboarding and all that good stuff. So I think really at the end of the day, we're a little bit different breed. We help with automation. We help you do it in a more affordable way that your SMBs can stomach to pay for. And all at the same time, we're keeping everybody more secure, you and your customers. And then last, I think we do have a testimonials page. So, I mean, you can try to listen to us all day long and listen to the vendor of why our product is so much better than, or, you know, why we're so special. But to me, if I'm a consumer, I like listening to my fellow business owner, to my peer. And we have hundreds of these. If you go on Channel Pro, there's actually a really good review spot. We've got over 50 5-star reviews. Hopefully that means something to you. You probably recognize some of the partners on there. But these are 3 partners right here. We picked a big, medium, small. And the big one, right? Buddy Pitt, CEO of Logically. Thousands and thousands of customers, or should I say end users that are being protected by our software. And in the first month, they caught 15 business email compromises. I mean, that gave me some pause, right? Because even big companies, very reputable companies like Logically had that gap. They had that blind spot. So they were able to quickly go in and resecure those environments. So we're not just for the big guy. We're not just for the small guy or gal, right? We're here for managed service providers that want to be better with security. They want to be able to increase their MRR by selling this service and selling a different service that's not just a Me Too product. You're adding value, unique value, right? Same with like Linwood Wright from My Tampa IT. I set up Respond and it blocked an actual compromised account 2 days after onboarding. I can't tell you how many times during the free trial we'll have the customer share their screen and they'll stop because we're seeing a low and slow brute force attack actually happening in real time. So it's pretty neat, and you don't ever, root for the compromises, but it is neat to see the software working in real time. And you can see, bad actor trying to authorize or trying to authenticate into the tenant, authentication failure, multiple authentication failure, account lock, multiple account locks, successful sign-in. You can see the trail. And again, we're capturing all this for a year. And then finally, Nick over at Net Plus, a lot of MSPs that we compete with don't use a tool like SaaS Alerts. And that helps us wow our customers. It helps us sell our offering and generate more revenue. So although a lot of you folks are really concerned and thoughtful about security, it's a nice money maker as well. And Nick knows all about that. It's an easy resell, and customers are begging these days for more security. So the perception we're getting when we ask our MSP partners, how did this go over when you sold this to your customer? How did you present it? Most of them are coming back and saying 0 to little pushback. And they were actually thanking us that we actually implemented something like this because they're seeing all of the attacks. You turn on the local news, it's doing your job for you. I hate to say it, but it is doing a lot of the education out there. So again, central theme here. We want to keep you guys up to the latest trends. We want to make you better with security, do so at an affordable price. 14-day free trial. Michelle, do we have any links? I'm sorry, I forget what the next slide is, but I think these next ones are you here. Yeah, if you want to go through some next steps, sure.
Sure. If you'd like a free trial, you can visit SaaSalerts.com. There is a giant button right at the top that you can click. That'll bring you there. You can follow us on our LinkedIn page. We stay pretty active. If you have any specific questions, feel free to email sales@SaaSalerts.com. And we also have a weekly community call. It's our SASI community call, and that is just partners come in and we talk to them about what's going on in the world of, all things MSP. It's not even necessarily cybersecurity. It's all kinds of things, but we do talk about things we're working on, things We ask them a lot of questions. They give a lot of great feedback to help improve the platform. It's a really great community call. It's one of my favorite things every week. So if you have time on a Thursday at 1 p.m. our Eastern time, we would definitely love to have you join us. And next month, we're starting a monthly demo day. So our senior onboarding specialist, Anthony Drager, and our sales engineer, Ben Jones, will be starting this once a month. They're going to just, it's going to be a webinar format, do a demo. And it's really great if you're not ready to have that one-on-one call with one of our sales folks, and you just want to see how the platform works, ask a couple questions. That's a really great opportunity for you to do so. So that link is in there as well. And Alan wants to see the platform. Sure, join us on the demo day. Or, Pat, you want to take that since
Yeah, Alan, so I can show you. We probably don't want to do it on this webinar, but I'm happy to show you either after the call or tomorrow. We can set up a time. I'll email you here because I think we have your email. So we'll set up a time, even if it's, I've got a call right after this, but even this afternoon, it demos really easily, and happy to show you that on a separate call for sure. All right. Any other questions about any of the material we just covered, about any questions about SaaS alerts and what we're all about?
Like Lawrence has a question.
Chip, that one, I think that one's towards you here. You want to give that one a shot?
The long ones.
Good question. Oh, you're on mute, Chip.
Interest on the question, which is, why is hacking process so successful and creates so much concern? Well, it creates so much concern because of the consequences of a breach. As Pat stated earlier, 97% of the data that we collect is not breach data or an indication of breach data, which is a good thing. For the most part, people's accounts stay secure. MSPs do a reasonably good job of keeping them secure. But that 3% that actually does happen in the SASI universe can be very, very damaging, with everything from data exfiltration to embarrassment to actual dollar cost, sometimes legal cost. It all depends upon how far they go. So your statement that you're thinking is that you can just ditch a system easily with no loss of data if everything's backed up. That's definitely true when you're talking about local devices, but you can't ditch a SaaS account. You can't undo or roll back when someone has successfully exfiltrated data from SharePoint or Google Drive, or Dropbox, or any cloud service that people are using to store their intellectual property. It's always been the same target, whether we're talking, the late 90s and malware into the early 2000s, all the way to where we are today. The target has always been get the intellectual property of the company, get your hands on it, and then try and do something with it to give yourself leverage as an attacker. So the battlefield has just changed, and the data is now stored in SaaS applications, or in some cases in things like S3 buckets. But either way, you still have to monitor it, and monitor who accesses it and when and where it goes and what they do with it. Exactly. It's getting hold of the data. Remember, the term business email compromise has become really popular when we talk about Microsoft. But a business email compromise is not just the compromising of an email account. It's Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. That's a compromise of an entire account, of everything that an account has permission to do. Even guest accounts. Guest accounts are one of the most important things to monitor that many people don't. If you have a client who shares a lot of files using guest accounts with their customers, and no one's monitoring that guest account, well, that guest account can be hacked, and whatever they have permission to take can be taken. So let's see Tim's question here.
That's right up your alley, Chip. Good one for you.
Yeah, well, let's unpack this one from the bottom up, where their own government might be doing much to prevent it. Unfortunately, the governments of the bad actors, Russia, China, some other places in the Far East, not so much Eastern Europe. We don't see a whole lot there. It's not only do they not prevent it, but they encourage it. Cyber warfare is economic warfare, and it's a way of leveraging against your opponent. You saw in the beginning of the Ukraine war, Russia immediately tried to literally cut off access to the Ukraine. And oddly enough, in comes Elon Musk with Starlink to give them a communications platform that, instantly changed the footing of the communications war. Anything that you can be particularly cautious and aware of? Yeah, I think there is. And I think it starts with identity and access management, that making sure you're locking down, our last set of stats, we haven't published 2023s yet this year, but our 2022 stats indicated that only 30% of corporate email accounts are covered by MFA, not email, but SaaS application accounts are covered by MFA. That was backed up with almost the exact same number down to the tenth or to the tenths coming out of CISA having the same information. So that's a really, really low number. If you think about it, nationwide or even globally, 70% of accounts are not even protected by MFA because people can't be bothered. We encourage our MSP partners to encourage their customers to move even beyond MFA and go to hardware tokens, YubiKeys, fingerprint or facial ID. If you haven't researched it yet, definitely look at FIDO2. It's a standard evolving in partnership between Google, Microsoft, and Apple. Like the only thing they all agree on is that identity access management has to be improved, and it needs to become passwordless and rely on biometric data in order to really secure. Secondarily to accounts are going to get compromised. And remember, we're talking a very small percentage that get compromised. Only 3% of the events that we track fall into that medium or critical alert category. And it's only a subset of those that are actual compromises, usually in that critical realm. So the costs are just so high that you've got to continuously monitor, have a system in place that looks at behavior analysis, and that's how helps you identify where the loss is going to come from. Great question, Tim.
Looks like we got one more chip from Lawrence.
Oh, wow. That's a great one. So, Lawrence, not only are they not responsible, they actually tell you right in customer agreements, which no one reads, as we all know, that security is a shared responsibility. It's both sides of it. And in the end, if you think about it, the real risk is the risk that we all manage together. You guys as MSPs, us as a software solutions provider in the security space, we all manage the risk of the user and how they behave. Microsoft can put everything in place possible to offer the ability to lock down their systems, but people don't take advantage of it. And when you have a user, in the end, it's always the user that winds up being phished, or giving away their credentials in some other way, or having a weak password, or being so reluctant to use MFA that their account is now, it's sooner or later going to be targeted. If you don't have MFA on an account, it's going to be a target at some point, and it's going to get successfully hacked at some point. So they can't really claim that they've got 100% or even 99% capability. Microsoft goes a step further and tells you that if your account is hacked and is used to successfully hack a different account, which, by the way, is exactly how these attacks progress, you, the user, can be held legally responsible for the damages to that next account. So I'd encourage anyone who hasn't done it lately to go back and, I think Pat just posted it right here. Yeah, you did. Go back and look at the Microsoft 365 terms, and you'll see that, it's very clear that the expectation is that security is more than a job just for the software provider. And this goes for you guys too. We encourage all of our partners to make sure that their customers understand the customer has a responsibility to participate in this as well. When you're an MSP and you're taking on the responsibility to provide security for your customers, you have to set the expectation with them that if they do something wrong on their own, in spite of you telling them not to, or they won't follow your recommendations, then the consequences are on them. Does that make sense?
Looks like we got one
I
more
don't
from
see
Tim.
that, Tim. We certainly don't see a push to move on to other forms of communication completely. Now, things like Teams and Slack, Zoom is now a chat platform as well. Obviously, Google has their own version. Like, there's many different approaches to facilitating communication between entities. Certainly, intra-company communication with things like Teams and Slack and other intra-company chat. But that's even extending beyond those boundaries. But email, in the end, always becomes, sort of the method of record when you want to document something. You've got long messages that you need to send. You have large attachments that need to move. Email seems to still be the preferred way of managing that. And really, if you think about it, if you use Teams, we use Slack internally. Well, we use both. But we can't have a dialogue with 850 different partners and all their technical team, in Slack or in Teams. That's got to be managed much more asynchronously using email.
It's all good stuff. Well, hey, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Looks like that's the last of the questions. We'll break about 7 minutes early. So again, appreciate everybody's time for coming out. Look us, SaaSalerts.com. You can request a demo, request a trial. My email address, pat@SaaSalerts.com. We'll be following up with everybody after the presentation. Michelle will get a copy of this presentation out to everybody that registered and that participated. So thank you very much. And those 2 Amazon gift cards for Lawrence and for Alan, those will be going out by the end of the week. Watch for those in your inbox. Really appreciate everybody's time, and thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.